Okay, so I have here with me Xiaomi's old flagship. It's the Xiaomi 14, and I tested it out if this is still a good phone to consider this 2026. Let's go. Do take note though, I got this phone for secondhand. It's around 20,000 pesos for the 512 gig version. As for a quick spec recap, this uses the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 paired with 12 gigs of RAM and at most 256 or 512 gigs of storage. Now the reason why I chose this phone is that I don't really like big phones. I prefer compact phones, and usually those phone sizes are available on our flagship range phones or the mid-range size that's around 30 to 40,000 pesos. Or unless you get one of those Pixel lineup phones. Now the dilemma is, should I get this second-hand flagship phone or settle with the newly released budget to mid-range devices? And from my experience, this phone, if not, still beats those newly released budget to mid-range devices in an overall aspect, that is. So, first things first, the build and design of this phone. It still definitely feels quite flagship, plus the design doesn't really feel too outdated yet. Also, if you know the Xiaomi 15, they basically have the same setup but different camera configurations, making them basically look similar with different color options altogether. Now, if we're going to talk about performance, this phone still definitely outshines even the other budget to mid-range devices. It's snappy, fast, responsive, and I never really had a moment of lag with this phone right here. Also, if you're high for gaming, this phone can still definitely keep up with modern titles nowadays. I tried playing the recently released Enfield game and I was able to play 60 FPS consistently with high settings on this phone. But the drawback is, after 10 to 15 minutes of playing with it, the phone does not get warm but actually really hot. So if you're gonna play on this phone, I suggest you getting a cooler for the back of this phone to keep it cooled during your gaming sessions. As for the camera output on this phone, for 2026, is still definitely up there. I took this with me on my trip to Thailand to try it out, and upon checking, it still can definitely take Instagrammable photos and even wallpaper or lock screen worthy photos. Plus, the video stabilization on this phone is still really good even without the gimbal. However, my only gripe is that the front cam on this phone, I've had better. Another drawback on this phone is that despite having a really smooth display, the peak brightness you achieve on this might not be able to keep up with more modern budget to mid-range devices. For the battery life of this phone, as this is a second-hand phone, it doesn't really last the whole day anymore. I have to charge it on the afternoon, which is still quite acceptable for me compared to my flip phone that I charge 2 to 3 times a day, with both having heavy usage. So, is the Xiaomi 14 still worth checking out this 2026? Well, if you're not that big on software updates or AI shenanigans, then yeah, this is still definitely a good powerhouse this year. Plus, on the second-hand marketplace right now, this ranges from 17 to 20,000 pesos at most, which is actually quite acceptable considering the age of this phone. However, if you're planning to buy on the mall or brand new prices, I think you should consider checking out a different phone for the price that you're gonna be spending.